right, my friends, welcome back to the podcast. Yo, guys, my voice is super shaky because this episode, which is so interesting, does not have like a fancy number. It's just episode 86. But this episode is a big deal for me. It's actually sacred territory because today I'm going to talk to you about possibility. And this is a very vulnerable moment for me because I am experiencing what my clients call fear. And that comes along with anticipation and apprehension and nervousness. And I call this what my clients call fear because for most women, fear means stop, retreat. For me, fear is excitement for my next expansion. When I thought about this episode, I've been thinking about it for a very long time. And I never felt like it was the right time. It wasn't that I wasn't ready, because right now, I don't think I'm ready to talk about this episode. I don't think I'm ready to talk about what I want to talk about. And my brain is offering me that I'm not ready. And that's where that fear comes from. Like, how could I do something that I'm not ready for? But that's exactly why this is the perfect time to talk about it, because you are never going to feel ready. And I know that about myself. I worked really hard over the last few years, overcoming and transmuting emotions into fuel, rocket fuel to expand my identity. This is the work that I do every single day. This is the work that I do with my clients. So I now recognize when fear comes on, I know what it is. I'm familiar with fear. We're connected. And I no longer think of it as an obstacle. I think of it as a signal. I think of it as a sign that I'm expanding, I'm at the threshold, and I'm moving into something amazing. And so I turn that into excitement. But it doesn't mean that there's no fear. Like it's there. And I'm really also excited about sharing this with you all, because here's what I know to be true when it comes to possibility. It is something that is so tremendously essential to our existence as human beings. And we lose sight of that very early on in um our growth, and no one reminds us of it. No one brings it up, and we could live our entire life never interacting with possibility, and that is a unfulfilled life. A well-lived life is a life full of possibility. It's a life that is connected to possibility. So for me, I lived almost all of my 40 years in a lack of possibility. I had a lot of possibility when I was a kid. And then, like I said, we lose sight of that. It gets turned off inside of us by society, by the voices we hear, by how many times people tell us no, and we are taught that no is a wall that's not breakable, that you can climb through. We're trained in school that if we hear no, it's failure, and failure means that we retreat. And so we forget what possibility means. And so that's how I grew up too. Just like you, I grew up just thinking I could do only one thing. I could be in just one way, and I was this one person. The things we say to ourselves, I can't do that. I'm this person. I am this. I am that. Right? And we forget the possibility of being multiple different things. So the first time I interacted back with possibility, and it unleashed something inside of me that has never been able to shut, I don't even think I can shut it down now if I wanted to, is when I heard my first coach, and I'm forever grateful to have met her. And she taught me the value of dreaming. I used to be a dreamer. I remember in middle school, laying in bed, skipping school, laying in bed, dreaming about who I would become, what I would create. And then I stopped, right? Again, because of society. And so when I heard her on her podcast. And she gave me permission to dream. I say she gave me permission because the way she talked about dreaming, daydreaming, which daydreaming to adults sounds like something so silly, but daydreaming is the bedrock of possibility. And so the way she talked about daydreaming, the way she talked about goal setting, who you become in the process of achieving the goal, it changed my life. It opened up something inside of me that, like I said, it's unleashed now and I can't close it. And so I've been interacting with possibility for years now. As a coach, as a mentor, as a guide, I invite my clients to interact with possibility. I offer them possibility every single day, like my coach did for me. What's so fascinating about possibility is that it really opens up your freedom to give yourself permission to be anything you want to be. So whenever you hear the expression, you could be anything you want to be, most of us discount it and we think that's too far-fetched. As a matter of fact, some women do have a dream and then they think it's too good to be true. So they're thinking too big for themselves, which is not possible because if you really think about it, you're the one that had the dream. I didn't have it. So it's too big for me, but it's not too big for you because you're the one that had it. But when you think about possibility, it's really giving yourself permission to want what you want. And what you want is inside of you. And it's up to you to tap in and to see it. And it's so exciting because you start to realize how strong and capable you are. I was in a coaching session with a client the other day, and we were talking about how she's feeling, what she's going through. And she had never realized how powerful she was, how resilient she was to be able to navigate her emotional world in such a powerful leader way that she was creating the results she wanted unconsciously. And once she gained that awareness, because we do so many amazing things as human beings without even giving ourselves credit for and without even realizing how we're making these things happen. And every time you create results haphazardly without intention, you just can't duplicate them. And if you can't duplicate them, you cannot own that power. And so when she was able to notice how powerful she had been, she had this pattern of powerful moments where she's shifting her emotional states. And she didn't even realize how powerful she was. But the minute she saw it, there were tears. Tears of coming home to herself and recognizing how great she is. And this is something women don't do enough of. Just owning the powerhouse that we are. And that's what possibility does for you. That's what it did for me. I've always been this high performer my whole life. But I underplayed it because people around me underplayed it and I listened to their voices. People's voices are so much louder than our own. Especially as we grow up, we're trained to tune down our own voice, to lower the volume and to pay attention more to other people's voices. And so as we become adults, those are the voices we hear most. Our own voice is like a tiny little whisper. But once I listened to my coach, that literally unleashed inside of me the power to turn the volume back up on my own voice and to ask myself the most powerful question you can ever ask yourself. What do I want? And when you ask yourself, what do I want? The next question is, who am I? Okay, this is really amazing. You have to ask yourself what you want before you ask yourself who you are. Because if you ask yourself who you are, you're going to define yourself by your past. That's not a possibility. That's already happened. Possibility is what's available for you that you haven't even seen yet. But if you ask yourself first, what do I want? Then you open up your heart to your desires. It's always there. There's no one that can tell you what you want. You know it. And the minute you determine what you want, then you ask yourself, who am I? It's from what you want that you determine who you are. It's not from your past. There's this dangerous statement that I heard the other day. And let me tell you something. Social programming is done 75% by TV. Okay? It's from TV shows and the news and the narrative on TV that humans learn how to be humans. So I heard this statement, and you're probably going to recognize this in some shape or form. This statement was, the best way to predict someone's future is to look at their past. That stung me to the core of my heart. Like, what? The best predictor of your future is your past? That is a blatant lie and the most dangerous propaganda that you must delete from your brain. It is the most inaccurate statement that I've ever heard. And until I heard my coach on TV now, on the podcast, talk about possibilities, dreams, daydreaming, goals achievement, I believed that too. I did too. I believed I can't do this because I haven't been able to do it yet. I don't know how to do something because I haven't learned how to do it. I haven't done it before. We say that all the time as if we're stating the facts. That's because we've been programmed to think if you haven't done something, then you can't do it. I used to even say I don't learn new tricks because I've tried, which by the way, I learned a lot of new tricks, but this trick I have not learned yet. I'm the only one in my family who didn't learn how to bike. So I've tried as an adult to bike, but with that belief that I can't learn new tricks, of course I failed. But I failed ahead of time, right? Not even the right kind of failure that I teach my clients, like fail, learn, and get better. I failed miserably every time I tried to learn how to bike because I didn't believe that I could learn a new skill because I didn't learn it. I didn't know it. So there's no way. Do you see what I mean? How dangerous that is? To think who you're going to become is based on who you've been? Dude, let's just delete that belief system completely. Like, I want you to go and write that sentence, something similar to, you probably have this running in the background of your brain because most humans do. If you're not doing the work that I do with my clients, actively rewriting your story, you most definitely believe some type of this. Your past determines your future. So what I want you to do now, and I just really thought about this exercise right now because this is a very dangerous, insidious, absolutely destructive belief, and it has cousins. So what I want you to do is uproot that belief and then pull all the cousins that come along with it. Okay, so here's how you do that. This is so dangerous. Write that down, however you believe it, and then ask yourself questions around it. What else? How else do I show up this way in my life? Where else does this show up in my life? And I want you to spend the next 2 weeks reflecting on where in your life do you see the pattern of you being stuck at doing something because you don't know how to do it, because in the past you didn't know how to do it. So therefore you don't know how to do it. That's the first thing that I want you to do from this terrible belief. But this is where that relationship with possibility got stunted. Because we were embedded that belief, and it's in all the things. For instance, when you want to get hired for a job, you don't have experience, so you can't get hired. How will you do the job to get the experience if you don't get hired? That's because they're looking at your past to determine what you're capable of. So let's change that. So that's the first thing. Like, I literally went on this tangent, but I listened to that sentence in the TV, and I was like, this is so dangerous. So let's make sure we get that out of the way. But these are things that we listen to our whole lives that destroy our relationship with possibility. And what I want to offer you today is, as a human being, you have been gifted something so powerful, which is why your brain is your most powerful, amazing, valuable assets. When we talk about net worth, we talk about your assets versus your liabilities. Your brain is your asset because of imagination. your ability to imagine something that has not been created yet. That's your creative gifts. Animals don't have this, plants don't have this. Humans do. We can go in our brain and create something, imagine something, draw a picture of something we want, something we desire. And from that, we bring it to life, to matter. We go from conception to idea to matter, physical matter. That's how the world exists. It went from an idea to reality. Because of your imagination, you can dream of anything you want. There are no limits to what you can dream about. And if you can dream it, you can realize it. That's our gift as humans. Now, we don't believe in that concept because we've been programmed to act based on past experiences, based on what we're told to do. So, for instance, when you go to school, then you go to college, and you want to decide your career, you Google it. And Google is just a collection of what everyone has done before, and now it's giving you your limited options. So with Google, you want to become a physician, you'll Google what a physician's salary is supposed to be, and then you'll be like, okay, so here's my bracket, here's the range of how much money I can make. You've literally allowed people's past to limit what's available for you. I was talking to a graduate student from a school of medicine, and she's excited to become a PA. And she said, I can't remember exactly the words, but it was something about how much money she was going to make. And she was thinking $250,000 would be an incredible amount of money. And in her words, she said something like, I don't need more money than that, or I don't think I can make more money than that, something like that. And I just thought to myself, who taught you that? Who taught you that you could only make $250,000? What if you wanted $1 million? Could you give yourself permission to want $1 million? As a PA, how could you create a life where, as a physician assistant, you make $1 million a year? Why isn't that available? If that's what you want. But we don't even let ourselves want what we really want because we are in these confined limitations that society has put around us. That is not possibility. But when I listened to my coach, what unleashed inside of me was everything that I had been working with my life, what the kind of high performer I was. And then everything else blew out of proportion. I started thinking, what else do I want? I mean, with a limited mindset, I already created so many amazing things. And I thought to myself, this opens up, like the universe literally opened up to my brain. And I thought, what else can I possibly want? And so many things have come along the way where I'm at a place where I'm telling myself, I want to lose weight and I'm going to lose the most amount of weight that I want to lose because I want to. That is not something I would have ever conceived 10 years ago. Ever tell myself, oh, I want to. In fact, I used to think, oh, I am big boned. I can't lose weight. That's just my genes. Like, really, think about it. The things that we miss out on when we don't interact with possibility. I also went from, okay, I'm going to work out basically to, oh no, I work out every single day. I remember the first year I ran my first half marathon. I was working nights then and I was training for a marathon and I do volunteer work. Between all of that, I felt like I was extended at max capacity. And I probably was because of my limited thinking. Today, I'm 20 years older. I'm running a business. I'm still doing my volunteer work and I'm training for a full marathon and I work out every single day. My capacity has expanded because I have allowed myself, given myself permission to have a relationship with possibility, to let myself go wherever my brain dreams, to dream freely of what I want. I always tell myself, this is the last time that I live this life. So I'm going to have the most fun and go out with a bang. So what is possible for me in this lifetime? What is possible for you in this lifetime? Women shut themselves down from possibility because they're afraid of disappointment. I used to do the same thing. In order for me not to be super disappointed, I wouldn't dream. But you know what's so sad about that? Is that I was already making myself disappointed right away. So I tell myself, okay, so I don't want to set a goal and be disappointed when I don't achieve it. So therefore, I won't even set the goal. But as I'm not setting the goal, I'm already disappointing myself because I have desires that want to be fulfilled. They're in me. So between your desire and the lack of possibility, there's discomfort. I talked about this on a podcast episode where I broke down the difference between positive discomfort and negative discomfort. There's who you are being today with the desires that are bigger than where you're at because your potential is screaming at you. And then there's the door that you shut down on possibility because you're trying to protect yourself from disappointment. Between that, there is discomfort, the negative discomfort, which is keeping you stagnant because there's so much capacity inside of you that's unfulfilled. Your life as you live it today is so much bigger than what you have right now. And your brain knows that, the inner compass inside of you knows that. And when you don't tap into possibility, there is this rumination going on inside of you that is just like a humming noise in the background that's creating so much discomfort. Until you unlock the door to possibility and allow yourself, give yourself permission to dream and decide what you want, who you are. You are the woman who is allowed to have what she wants. When you go there, that little voice inside of you, the whisper that has been turned down, you start to turn the volume up. You bring it up, you bring it up, you bring it up. And next thing you know, that's the only voice you listen. This is the work that I do with my clients. I teach them how to listen to that inner voice, make it louder and louder. There's so much wisdom inside of you, so much desire, so much potential, so much capacity inside of you. I did another episode where I talked about 10% of our brain, this myth that people just spread everywhere as like a plague, that we're only tapping into 10% of our brain. Another very dangerous propaganda. Because how do you measure 10% of your brain, my friend? Why do you measure it? Why are you trying to limit how infinite your brain capacity is? Do you realize that you can learn as much as you want and still have more room for more learning? Why are we limiting what we have available to us as a gift? You didn't create yourself. How are you even capable of determining what is 100% of your brain? Why even go there? How useful is it to think 10% of your brain? It never feels good to think such a limited capacity versus really our capacity as humans is infinite. Because we actually have more neural connectors inside of our brain than the stars of the universe. The connections. Every time we learn something, we create new connections. The potential of connections that we have inside of our brain, this tiny little 3 pound organ, the potential that we have in there is bigger than the stars in the entire universe. So why are we thinking about 10%? Because we want to protect ourselves from disappointment. But I teach my clients and I teach you that emotions are natural to us. So we have the capacity to feel them and process them and be with them. So why are we afraid of emotions? Why are we afraid of how we will feel when we don't achieve the goal? Who are you becoming along the way of achieving the goal? That's what you need to focus on, because you're not the same person. You're no one new. You're just unveiling a version of you didn't even know was in there. And that's the fun part. That's the fun part. So your relationship with possibility allows you to give yourself permission for what you want, for losing the weight, for buying the house, for building the business, for buying the car, for running the marathon, for cooking the dish, for looking at your money and finally facing it, for wanting more money, for saving money and having it, for embracing negative emotions and letting them be there, giving them a chair and lots of rooms in your home. That's your relationship with possibility. So when emotions come, you're like, oh, this one is a new one. Let me get to know her and see what she's here for. This year, I discovered uncertainty. I started feeling a certain way in the beginning of the year, and I could not name it because I know what fear feels like. I know what self-doubt. I know what disappointment, what discomfort. I know those emotions. I was like, this is different. I'm feeling a little, and when you haven't processed an emotion, you're stuck. Especially every time it comes up. And I actually created a post about this. It's the emotions you haven't processed. The mountain you can't climb is the emotions you haven't processed. So when your system is introduced to a new emotion and you don't know what to do with it, you will get stuck every time. And I noticed that. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me explore here. And the more I did that, the more curiosity instead of judgment I showed for myself. I noticed that it was uncertainty. When I felt uncertain, I felt differently in my body than when I felt self-doubt or fear or any other emotions that I'm very familiar with, which was an invitation for me to familiarize myself with uncertainty. Now I know how it feels when it comes. I'm like, oh my gosh, uncertainty is here. Here, sit down. Let's have a talk while you're here, right? And remember, emotions come from thought. So really, when I feel uncertain, I must be thinking something that is generating that. So I have a relationship with those thoughts. I explore them and I understand why they're there. That allows me to open up my space, my heart, my emotional energy to welcome uncertainty. So I'm not like shooken by it. I'm not afraid of it. That's what possibility does for you. Listen, when I talk about possibility, I'm not talking about positivity. No, no, no. I'm talking about your capacity, your humanness, your aliveness to be in the presence of positive and negative emotions and feel alive through all of it. And then knowing how capable you are to create whatever you want. If you have a thought about what you want, my friend, you are the woman who is creating it. All you need to do is unveil it to yourself. And there are steps you can follow to do that. This is actually why I created the podcast series, Her Money Stories. This is where I went with this. I've been reflecting on this a lot. I've been looking at my clients and noticing how and this is even with you, even when we know what to do, we still don't do it. What is going on there? Why do we know what to do with money? We know how to create money, how to get a new job. We don't look for the new job. How to save money. We don't save the money. How to pay off debt. We don't pay off the debt. What is going on there? And so I started noticing what was different with me. Talking about money. Money used to be taboo for me. And so also my success with money was very taboo, right? And then when I started talking about money with my sisters, with my friends, with my coach, I started paying attention to my money. Paying attention to my money showed me the patterns that were creating the relationship I had with money. Oh, so I started seeing myself separate from the money and separating my identity from those patterns. And when I can see that, then I can take actions that support the future version of me who wants to be financially confident. I'm like, oh, I know exactly how that happened. I started spending my time talking about money. My story. What was my story before? What's my story now? And how did I bridge that gap? Her money stories became the thing that's going to bring that to life. So on the podcast, I am starting a series that I call Her Money Stories. This is an invitation for women to explore their relationship with money from a place of power. This is a thoughtful, intentional, safe conversation about money. This is not a gotcha interview where I'm going to be like, ooh, see, you need help, or you did it wrong, you made a wrong decision. This is a space where we're going to explore possibilities. When you apply, the reason you apply is so that I can get to know you a little better, and also so that you can receive the questions that we're going to discuss ahead of time. We may not even discuss all the questions because it could be so juicy that we only cover one question. But you will have the questions ahead of time because it's not supposed to be an ambush. It's supposed to be liberation. The space where you give yourself permission to actually do the things we should be doing with money, having the conversation, right? The purpose of this conversation is not performance. No, I don't want you to be the expert. I don't want you to be perfect. I want us to explore what our relationship with money is like and where our patterns are taking us. The goal of this conversation is to create belonging, is to allow women to feel less alone in their relationship with money, is to expose the shame that is attached with money. Because shame is a really powerful emotion that which is why money is a taboo conversation, because we've attached, as a society, we've attached shame to money. So when we talk about money, it's like really breaking all of the rules of society. We should never tell each other how much money we make. We should never talk about what goals we have, especially if they're financial goals. We shouldn't say it out loud, because then it will, whatever it's going to create, I don't even know. What are we afraid of to talk about money openly? What's so fascinating is when you think about possibility creates an identity shift way before any circumstantial changes. And so that's why this series was born, is to allow women to finally be willing to talk truthfully about money, identity, fear, shame, ambition, desire, possibility, and self-trust. When I am inviting women, I'm inviting you to this conversation. I really am inviting you into visibility, which is one thing women are super afraid of. I'm inviting you into honesty, reflection, emotional ownership, self-expression, and financial self-leadership. That's what this conversation is going to create. And it's 30 minutes only, because we are all high performers. Time is valuable. You don't need hours and hours of conversation for this to be impactful. 30 minutes, it's all it takes to unleash and to unlock that door of possibility inside of you, to create that aliveness that is available to you that you haven't tapped into. That's why I was nervous about recording this. But as I've discussed this, the nervousness has dissipated. And what has now stayed is the excitement and the joy that I feel about this platform that my sisters and I are creating for the woman that's going to come on. I started this episode saying that I'm recording it because I feel apprehensive and anticipatory, because this feeling that I was feeling earlier comes on when I'm at the edge of growth. So you may be feeling this feeling. You may be feeling that fear, and know that it is a very good sign, because you heard me talk about her money stories. I want to invite you to apply, to join the conversation. I am not limiting the spots to a number of women. This is an ongoing conversation that I want to have with all of you listeners and your next door neighbor and your girlfriend who's not even listening to the podcast. So tell your girlfriends about this. Tell your sisters about this. Let's normalize women talking about money in the most empowering way possible. Let's create a platform where women can identify themselves with other women's stories and feel a sense of belonging. That's what I'm creating here. Because one of the byproducts of this conversation is liberation. And in this economy, in this society, women deserve liberation. And guess who's going to give that to us, ladies? Not men. We don't need them to get it. We give that to ourselves by having this conversation. So you want to go to the show notes. I'm going to tell you the link. It's greenwealthlegacy.com/her money story. Story is singular with Y at the end. One word. I'm going to say it again. greenwealthlegacy.com/her money story. One word. And you're going to apply. Again, the application is just so I can get to know you. It's not a filter as to, oh, you're not going to get in. No way. We're all having this conversation. Right? And then in the show notes, you can also just click on the link. Listen, when we have this conversation, shame is it's probably going to be the first emotion that gets exposed and dissipates right away. Remember, when I started this conversation, I was feeling fear, but I already know I'm very familiar with fear. I know what to do with it, so it's gone now. I'm going to walk you through it, what to do with your shame. Even if you don't think there's shame, we all carry some level of shame. But if shame is attached to money, we can get rid of that real quick. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you know how you got rid of shame attached to money, you can just duplicate that skill in other aspects of your life and notice the liberation that comes from that. Okay, so go to greenwealthlegacy.com/her money story so that you can apply and join the conversation. And remember, when you apply, you will get the questions. There's a series of questions that we will discuss. There's a lot about what's going on with you and your relationship with money, the story you tell yourself. We all deserve to talk about our story. And then what's available for you, where you want to go, what dreams do you have? Of course, I'm going to ask you about your dreams. And we all should be daydreaming every day of what we want, right? Okay, so maybe the first act of possibility is allowing yourself to be seen before you feel fully ready. Because you'll never really feel ready. You feel ready after you've taken action, because that's the confidence that feels ready. So maybe this is your first act of possibility by jumping into something before you feel fully ready, because that's exactly what I'm doing with this episode. I am showing up here before my brain agrees that I'm ready. But because I'm familiar with what this is, I did it. And I have so many examples of when I showed up before I was ready, and it worked out so powerfully, because that's exactly how it's supposed to work. You always want to show up before you're ready, because possibility builds your identity way ahead of circumstantial changes. So one more thing I want to say. This episode is very important to me because it's not about tactics. It's not about me coming to you as the expert. It's me coming to you as your peer, going through fear, unreadiness, yet still showing up. Like, this is raw. I am speaking directly from our heart. I'm in real life going through this. So You're coming on this podcast and having this conversation with a woman who relates to you 100%, who is emotionally congruent because I'm doing this work in real life with you. This is the work, being present, being alive, being human, tapping into our imagination, our gifts. We're so honored to have that gift. And I want all of us to explore it, to enjoy it, and to live the most fulfilling life, the best life ever, while we still have it, while we're still breathing. So that's what we're doing on the podcast. So I cannot wait to have you on and have these great conversations. All right, my friend. Thank you for listening. This has been an amazing experience, transformative experience. Until the next episode. In the meantime, I want you to go out there and live your life on purpose. Be alive in your own life and show up before you're ready. I love you all so much. See you in the next episode.